Hello and welcome to 2020. Happy New Year to all of you. I hope you've had a very nice holiday season and are raring to go and learn some new techniques and get crafty in this new year. Today, as you can see here, I have my Gelli Plate. This is my 5 by 7 inch Gelli Plate. And today I'm going to be showing you how you can create some really fun designs using Distress Oxide inks. Now, this is something I haven't done a video on before, but there are other videos out there if you want to search for the techniques. I've chosen 6 colours here. I like this colour palette. I've got hickory smoke, seedless preserves, ripe persimmon, peacock feathers, crushed olive and chipped sapphire, and I'm going to be using a selection of those today. To my left here I've got some other craft supplies. I have some stencils. These are just some from my stash. I believe this one here was by Dutch Doobadoo. These other 2 designs are by joggles.com. I've found a couple of old embossing folders, something I don't use very often anymore, so please forgive me. I really don't think that you will find these unless you drop on them on somewhere like eBay, but these were Cuttlebug embossing folders. This is a larger one that's got an alphabet design. I'm not sure if you can see that too well in this light, and this one was just like an all-over swirl pattern. I've got a couple of stamps. This is an Art Foamy stamp. It's one of the Art by Marlene ones. It's in the shape of a leaf. Another Art by Marlene stamp was this one here, this Studio Light background stamp. And I've got one of the Carabel Studio art printing texture plates. These are designed to work in conjunction with gel prints. But if you don't have these, you know, just ordinary rubber stamps work perfectly well. As I say, today I'm going to show a few different techniques, starting from the very basics and then just how you can go back in and rework what you're doing and hopefully create some fun backgrounds. At the end, I shall pop these together as always into a few simple cards or projects, and just to show you how you can use them. But you know, you can use them in any way that you want to. So I'm going to move these things out of the way, zoom in a little bit so you can see closer what I'm doing, and we'll get on with creating some prints. I'm going to begin by taking a couple of colours of Distress Oxide ink. In this instance, I'm going to use the crushed olive and the chipped sapphire. I've got a brayer. As you can see, my brayer could probably do with a good clean. And I'm just going to take the ink pads and apply them directly to the plate. I'm going to create a bit of a two-tone effect here. I'm going to take my brayer and then just soften the blend between the 2 colours, and it just evens that ink out. Now, as you can see, the brayer will pick up a fair bit of ink. Now, you can roll this off onto a scrap piece of paper, but I would also suggest cleaning your brayer before you go and apply other colours to your plate. It does stay wet quite a long time, this Distress Oxide ink, and you'll end up with a muddy mess if you're not careful. So I'm just going to take a scrap of paper here and just brayer off some of that excess. And then either using a wet cloth or a baby wipe, I'm just using, this is one of the stamp cleaning towels. It's the Gina K towel, and it's just a damp chamois basically. And I'm just going to use that, because I can wash this off afterwards, just to remove some of the excess ink off that brayer, in the hopes that when I come and do more colours, it's not going to muddy it all up. I'm just using regular printer paper today for my prints, and I'm going to do a simple print, pop that down onto my brayered plate and lift the colour onto the paper. Like so. And I'm going to begin by creating several of these just basic backgrounds. Now, you can keep these, and these are perfectly good for stamping something else onto, but I will be using some of these as a background for a further technique later in this video. So I should probably just speed this process up and create several of these in different colours. And I will just be cleaning off any ink that's left on my plate. Again, so it doesn't contaminate the next lot of colours that I'm using. Now that I've got a selection of basic backgrounds created here, just there in a nice selection of colours, we're going to go and create some extra interest in a couple of those. So I'm going to take a background, and I think in this instance I'm going to use this one here that has the ripe persimmon and crushed olive. I'm going to take a contrasting colour. In this instance I think I'm going to use the peacock feathers, and I think I'll use a little chipped sapphire as well. And just going to apply like so and brayer as we did before. Just to blend the colours together. I'm going to take one of my stencils. I'm going to take this one here by joggles.com and just pop that down onto the plate. Take my print, pop that down over the top of the stencil, and make sure just rub down firmly all over there to transfer the ink through. And we created that print. I'm going to lift the stencil up, and we've got ink remaining on our plate from that was underneath the stencil. And I'm going to take another one of our prints, this one here, which was ripe persimmon and hickory smoke, and place that down and pull another print. And so we have those two, a positive and a negative image from the same stencil. You can then take this ink that's left on the stencil, flip the stencil over, press it down onto the plate, and take another one of our prints. Take this one that was Hickory Smoke and Seedless Preserves, and we should then be able to get a third print. And there we have a third print. So I'm just going to clean off my plate. And if you've got any ink left on the stencil, that just can be rinsed away. Next, we're going to use some stamps on our plate. And I'm going to, rather than using one of our prints that we've already done, we're going to be starting over. So I'm going to, again, I like using the two colours. So I'm going to use crushed olive and peacock feathers. And again, use the brayer just to soften that blend and just move that ink slightly. And now I'm going to take stamp. In this instance, I'm going to use this Art Foamy stamp of a leaf. It's just a nice bold design. And I'm going to take a contrasting colour, in this instance, ripe persimmon. And I'm just going to ink up, sorry, that's just slightly out of shot as I'm inking it up. Just going to ink up the stamp and stamp that directly onto the plate. And I'm just going to repeat that to cover my plate. So just add a bit more ink to my stamp. Press it down onto the plate to transfer the ink onto there. And you can go and rinse your stamp under the tap just to clean that off. And to take a piece of paper and pull a print. And you can see it gives a really nice effect, totally different effect to just stamping directly onto paper. Now there's a little bit of ink left on my plate, so I'm going to take another one of my prints that I started with and just see if we can lift that up and create a second print. The other thing that we can do with stamps is use them to remove ink from our plate. So in this instance, I'm just going to apply the ink to half of the plate. Just use the brayer to smooth that out slightly. And this time I'm going to take my Art by Marlene background stamp, which has a dusting of embossing powder all over it. I'm just going to get that off. But we can place this onto the inked areas, press down, and that'll lift some of the ink up onto the stamp. We can then press that down onto the uninked side and transfer it over there. I'm just going to repeat that on this end because obviously my plate's a little longer than my stamp is. I mean, one thing to note, obviously there are some letters and numbers on this stamp. These will be in reverse when I do a print. I'm not bothered. It's not like it's something that needs to be read. But do bear that in mind. If it's something that's got full words on, when you come to print it off, they will be backwards. So try and avoid anything like that. In this instance, it's just an all-over background design, and I don't really mind if the numbers and letters are reversed. And as you can see there, you'll get a positive and negative effect. Now that's really nice as it is. You could have done that on a pre-coloured background if you wanted a different colour to show through. Quite like how striking that is on the white. Again, just go and rinse your stamp off or wipe it off with a damp cloth. Another way that we can use stencils, and we did use one on our pre-made background. In this instance, I'm just going to go over the whole gel plate with one colour, in this instance Ripe Persimmon. Just brayer it smooth across the surface. I'm going to take another stencil. This is another one of the Joggles stencils. Place that on. And I'm going to take a print. What have we got left here? I'm going to use this one, which is Crushed Olive and Peacock Feathers. And what we're going to do is remove some of the ink from through the stencil. Like so, like we did earlier. Going to take the stencil off. This time I'm just going to lift that onto a plain piece of paper. Like so. I'm going to pop the stencil back down, face down onto my plate, and then I'm going to brayer some more ink across there. This time I'm just going to take my brayer to my ink pad and apply it to my plate with the brayer. And this will just give a slightly different effect. I'm going to lift the stencil off. Just pop that to one side for a moment. Take a clean piece of paper and take a print. And we should get the colour that's transferred from the stencil back onto the plate, as well as the colour that we braid over the top of the stencil. Like so. And again, it gives us a different effect, much different effect to what we got there, which is really nice and quite bright. Now we can sort of repeat this because we've got the purple ink that was on the stencil. So if we pop that down, and sticking with the right persimmon, because that's what's actually on the other side of this stencil still, we brayer some of that ink through there. We should now get the opposite of our last print. Like so. And obviously you can continue in this way, flipping over and doing two colours as long as you want to, until you're ready to go and rinse your stencil off. So I'm going to clean my plate again. I'm going to go and clean my stencil. You can use the embossing folders in a similar way to how we created our designs using stamps. So I'm going to apply some ink. Again, I'm using a couple of colours just because I like the effect that it gives. I'm then going to apply some ink direct to my embossing folder. Now the good thing about an embossing folder is you get a positive and a negative depending on which side that you decide to use. And where I mentioned before that your stamps will be reversed, that is the case obviously with your embossing folder, but you can choose to use whichever side you want, and therefore you can get letters and numbers and words the right way round. The way to remember it is you want to put the ink on the side that is actually facing in the right direction, because that will then be reversed onto the plate and then reversed back again to the correct way round when you do your print. I'm going to take the ripe persimmon ink and I'm just applying it to the surface that I want on this embossing folder. Like so. I'm going to line it up and press it down, and that'll transfer the ink onto the plate in the same way that we did when we used the foam stamp. Carefully lift it up. Get my piece of paper and create a print. And as you can see, my letters have come out facing the right direction there. Can then take the ink that is now remaining on our folder, press that back down on the plate to transfer a little more. and take a ghost print, which in this instance is actually coming out clearer now that the background is paler. There's still ink left on here, so let's just try for a third time. And yet another print. So I'm going to rinse my folder off, I'm going to clean my plate. I'm going to finish off today by using the Carousel Studios printing plate to lift ink, much in the way that we did with the Art by Marlene stamp earlier, where I covered half of the plate with ink and then transferred the design to the other half. This time I'm just going to put chipped sapphire down. It's a nice dark colour, which should contrast well with the brighter colours. I'm going to be using this print that we did here with the bright persimmon and peacock feathers. And like I said at the beginning, these art printing texture plates are very much like an unmounted rubber stamp. They are oriented so that if there is any lettering or numbers, it will be the correct way round when it's finished. And they come in a variety of designs and shapes. They've got some round ones as well. And they are just absolutely perfect for adding interest to your printed backgrounds. So I'm just going to lift some ink and then just piece another area of it onto the side there. And we can just clean the ink off this afterwards. It's just rubber. I'm going to take my print that we did at the beginning and just press down. And that creates a nice two-tone effect on there. I've got one more print left from the beginning. I may as well do something with that. So I'm going to take the right persimmon ink spray that evenly over the surface. Take our plate again. And take our final print. And there we have another really nice subtle effect. We have used quite dark colours here, and obviously the Distress Oxides are semi-transparent, but very nice effect again. I'm going to clean my hands, clean up my area, and I'll come back and show you the prints that we've made. Then I'll go off and make them into some finished projects and show you at the end what we've got. So these are the prints that we've created today. We began by using a stencil onto a pre-done background. Got a positive and a negative image. Got a second ghost print. So that gave us 3 altogether. Then we inked up a foam stamp and stamped onto an inked plate to create this. Then pulled a ghost print onto a pre-inked background, got a more subtle effect there. We used a stamp to lift some ink from one side and transfer to the other side of the plate. Popped a stencil down and printed through onto a pre-inked background here. Then used the ink that was left to pull this print. We created some more, a positive and negative image, inking through and flipping over our stencil. We inked up an embossing folder and used that to stamp onto our plate, and then gained a couple more ghost prints from that as well. And finally we used our texture printing plate to add interest to a pre-inked background. And I will say I've dripped a little water on this one, unfortunately. They are water reactive inks, so do be careful. It's fine, I can use something or cover that up. So I'm going to create a couple of finished projects with these, and I shall be back in a moment to show you. So here are the finished cards. I've used one of the prints that we used, the Carabel Studios stamping plate, and added a Lavinia Stamps Fairy and a Crafter's Companion Sentiment stamped in black, little bit of gold gel pen just to tie in with the gold matting around the edge. Here's another one. This was one of the prints we did with our stencil, and just added in Viva Las Vegas stamp and sentiment, keeping it nice and simple, matted onto some black card. Another Viva Las Vegas stamp there with a figure in the middle. The words are from Visible Image. Just goes nice over that stamped background that we created there, a little small gift card. Here's one of the ones that we did with the other stencil, where we inked through and flipped the stencil over, kept that nice and simple, die cut Crafter's Companion word there, matted and layered, created a little drop shadow on the die cut word. Here's the background that we stamped with the Art Foamies Art by Marlene stamp. Just used that as a background and popped in one of the Tim Holtz Paper Dolls die cuts and one of the Tim Holtz Snarky sentiments there, just to create a fun card. And finally, one of the ones that we created with the embossing folder, Catzelcraft stamp there, just coloured in, popped that on a little bit of washi tape, and one of the Tim Holtz clippings stickers there, just to finish that off. So lots of ideas there on how you can use die cuts, stamps, stickers, you name it, just to create some fun cards using your Distress Oxide gel print backgrounds. Hope you enjoyed today's video. Hope it's inspired you to get those gel plates out and try something different. So as always, if you enjoyed this, please leave me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And I shall be back again next week with another video. But for now, that's all. Bye.